Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukee Planning Commission. Agendas and additional items, copies of staff reports are available on the table in the hall. If you've not picked up an agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. If you wish to be included in the mailing list for a decision, please add your name and contact information to the sign-up list located on the table in the hallway. If you wish to testify, please fill out a yellow comment card, and I have one here already. We will follow the basic format listed in the back of the agenda. It includes all the hearing procedure steps. We may vary from the process based on the specific circumstances of each hearing. Don't believe we have any minutes to consider tonight? No? Are there any informational items from staff?
I just have one. We have contracted with a planning consultant to help with trying to tie up the downtown design guidelines and standards. Is a project that's been going on for a couple of years, and we're trying to finally package this work to get it into a product that we can bring forward into hearings and adoption. So Planning Commission, or DLC, met with the consultant at their first meeting in March, and have another meeting scheduled for next Monday. So we're going to kind of try to plow through that over the next couple of months, so that by some point in the summer we will have a revised document that should be ready for hearings. So that's our objective. I don't know.
Who's the consultant? Who's the consultant?
It's Elizabeth Decker from Jet Planning. She was the sub-consultant to Sarah Architects when we had that initial support work. So she was familiar with the project.
Yeah.
So I think that's felt like we were making progress last week. So let's just leave it there for now.
Very good. This is an opportunity to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to comment on an item that's not on the agenda, there will be time for comments after the presentation. We've closed the public comment on the comprehensive plan, so we're not taking further public comments on that, but I will open it to anyone who wishes to comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. And I have a speaker registration from Mr. Clark. Would you like to come up, Mr. Clark? And I would just remind you that the comprehensive plan public testimony is closed.
Correct. Albus Clark. I live in the Ardenwell neighborhood and active citizen. And thank you for all your work here, commissioners and city staff. Wait, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. This coronavirus has kind of piqued my interest in the comp plan, in that a lot of the some of the attributes of single-family detached houses and of private transfer or a single occupancy or double or private automobiles ownership has kind of come, some of the benefits of that resiliency of having people separated from each other during the flu season and common colds and flu and that stuff. The coronavirus kind of highlights some of the possible weaknesses of planning buildings that have common entry and exit and common spaces for going into your living quarters. And also the public transit is another issue with there being in communication. Communicable diseases can be spread that way. I know this is not an overreaction, I don't think, at this time, that you need to preserve that capability of having individual utility or individual ways of getting to things without, in times, having to manage the common communicable diseases that are posed by public spaces. anyways, I think that was, in some ways, I think the comp plan kind of shortchanged the resiliency of these individual utility things. But anyways, that was my one point. But on the other thing, I wanted to thank commissioners and the staff for adding the language on 8.37 and 8.36 that link some of the changes in zoning and increased density with improved transportation or walkability, so that these kind of things are connected better. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is a public hearing on file CPA-2019-001, the comprehensive plan draft policy document. And the public hearing on that file number is called to order. The purposes of this hearing is to consider legislative amendments to the comprehensive plan policy document. The commission initiated this hearing on January 14th and continued it on January 28th, February 11th, and February 25th. We are in the deliberation phase of the hearing, meaning that both the record and the public testimony are closed. I will once again ask the commissioners, does any of the Planning Commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest?
No.
No. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to abstain?
No.
No. Staff presentation can start at this point.
All right, thank you, Chair Massey. Commissioners, David Levitan, Senior Planner. Just have a quick presentation. So at our last meeting on February 25th, the Commission deliberated on Section 7.4 in the housing section, dealing with livability, and then completed their deliberations on Section 8, which was urban design and land use. I would note that in attachment 1 of your packet this evening, staff has incorporated via track changes the edits that we believe we heard from commissioners at that February 25th meeting. So our recommendation for this evening is that we begin by having commissioners review Section 7.4 and Section 8 to make sure that we've captured the spirit and intent of your comments at the last meeting. Following that, staff had discussions with Chair Massey yesterday that we would be moving on and discussing the overarching section goals. We have a Word document that is up on the screen that will be able to go through those section goals and make edits on the fly. Commissioner Edge at a previous meeting had provided a matrix, which hopefully everyone still has, of all of the overarching section goals, how they tie into the vision. Our proposal this evening is to start with the section goals that were not pinned down by council. So that was sections 1, 2, 7, 8, 11, and 12, I believe. And then as needed to move on to the remaining ones. So we have those first 6 goals that have not been pinned down are the first 6 pages on the screen that we propose to work through. Following that, once commissioners have deliberated on the overarching goals, we would request that commissioners provide any feedback on the remainder of the document, so the non-goal and policy sections, background sections, introductions, anything else, before commissioners move on and make a recommendation to council. This being a Type 5 legislative amendment, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to council, and then they take action on that recommendation. So that's staff's presentation.
Any clarifying questions on the overall approach for the evening to the staff?
Thank you for laying it out so clearly.
So I think at this point what I would suggest is we go to section 7 and just go over the, I'll go through the sections that we worked on last week and see if there's any questions that came up. And I think we start at section 7.4. And so I'll ask if there's anything in 7.4.1. Is there anything in there? So I did have one question on 7.4.1. As I remember, we talked about a call-out box. And I think when I looked at that particular section, I don't think I saw one in the comprehensive document. Does anyone recall that?
We had talked about a call-out box for, there was that kind of housing.
Intentional communities.
Yeah, intentional communities.
That's in another section, I think, isn't it?
7.4.6.
Yeah.
But we talked about a couple.
Yeah, there was, I think, 3, and this is the one that I had a note on, but I didn't see a call-out box, and so that's why I'm kind of asking the question to refresh my memory.
I didn't make a note in my notes about that.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I don't catch everything.
That's why I'm asking for the wisdom of the masses here, yeah.
So I think it was 7.4.6 where intentional community is
Yes.
first.
Yeah. And in fact, a call-out box was inserted into the comprehensive document in that section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall
Okay.
a call out for 7.4.1, but
It was probably a random note of mine then.
perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah, most likely. So it's on page 215.
250.
Well, we got 2 sets of
Okay.
page numbers. It's 111 in the lower right.
We'll have to.
It's that orange call-out box on the right side.
So we were just intending to list types of intentional communities, not necessarily define what that means, or?
Mary noted
Oh, it's
that
in
it
the
was also in the glossary, but we can
My favorite fallback glossary. All right.
add the definition to the call-out box as well. If
Might be helpful.
Is there one already in the glossary?
Yeah.
Okay. It is a term that not a lot of people, including myself, would be familiar with. Okay?
I have no other corrections on section 7.4.
Okay.
I'm
Anyone
here.
else? Okay. Commissioner Edge, you okay with 7.4?
Yep.
Okay. Let's move to section 8. And any comments on section 8.1? It's rather long.
I'm just curious on 8.1.2C. We referred to I'm just looking at the last few words there, Central Milwaukee Land Use and Transportation Plan. The whole thing is the Central Milwaukee Land Use and Transportation Plan, right? It's not 2 documents, but just the one.
That's correct.
Okay, just making sure. We don't have an acronym for that one.
We don't.
It's long. You might consider it.
So I had one question on 8.1.4B, and we tried to get, those descriptions about the developments, about height, massing, et cetera, to be standardized. I noticed in that one that we didn't have setbacks listed as we did in the other sections. Was there a reason for that?
If I recall, we used the example of the Little Blue Store on Monroe,
Yeah.
which is up to the right-of-way. and
Literally, the little store.
Yeah, yes, the store called the Little Blue Store.
Yeah.
And that was the example. We said that we didn't want to include setbacks because it would preclude that type of development, which
Okay.
was seen as consistent with the neighborhood hub vision.
Okay,
I'd concur. I remember that conversation.
okay. Any other comments on 8.1? Now, there was a discussion on 8.1.6B about daylighting the creek where feasible. And I thought that we were going to have a call-out box on daylighting or some reference to daylighting.
Yes, we talked about that as well. Just, I think the benefits of daylighting are, if I remember correctly.
I think what I recall, part of that discussion was this shows up in multiple places in the report, and then maybe we just blew past that comment or that idea. So one of the questions is, where should the call-out box go? Is it here in sort of the urban design land use, or would it be better suited in one of the other sections?
I think that really the genesis for the idea of putting a call-out box here on this policy was because there was a question of what is this policy doing in the industrial land use, the industrial zones, land use, policy section.
Okay.
And so it's specific to kind of pointing out why it's there, and it's because of the creek that's underground in that area, in that where that zoning is applied.
Okay.
In the International Way Business District.
But I think that we did develop some language, and it was a staff oversight to not get it into the actual policy document. So we did have that language that did kind of focus on the difference between this area and Johnson Creek, where Johnson Creek is open channel. Pretty much entirely, I think entirely, whereas this section, a majority of it is piped. And so that was why it was added to this section within the International Way, because the majority of it is piped. So we do have that, and we can include that in the version that goes to City Council.
Excellent.
Thank you. Any other comments on 8.1?
And here.
Is there anything in the 8.2 sections?
Are we calling out typos?
Sure.
Yeah.
Three Creeks Natural Area is not plural. So that's 8.1.9B. Protect the Three Creeks Natural Area. That is all.
Is just for my own edification, is it actually used with a numeral instead of spelled out 3?
I don't know.
I mean, spelling it out is the right.
I would spell it out.
Grammatically.
I would also spell out 3.
Anything 9 and under is spelled out.
That was the way that the county had it
Is it the county
listed.
have it? I don't want to
Yeah.
upset
I've
any
seen it both
other
ways.
naming convention, but yeah.
I've seen it both ways, but I believe on the NCPRD page and on another county page, it's listed with the 3 creeks, but we can verify that.
I can live with the county's naming, I think.
Yeah, as long as we're consistent
Yeah,
with
yeah,
whatever it's officially
Yeah.
referred to. That's the most important thing.
Although it is grammatically incorrect.
Correct. That gets me too, but consistency is kind of the key
As long
thing.
as we're not propagating an error.
Right, yeah.
8.2 sections.
For what it's worth, threecreeks.org with the numeral 3 is the official URL of the natural area.
It's used with a numeral?
Well,
Okay. That'll be a new card in Trivial Pursuit.
No comment.
And finally, the 8.3 section. So I had a question on 8.3.7. It says evaluate transportation concurrency and utility availability when considering comprehensive plan amendments. As I remembered, this revolved around the discussion of density triggering capital improvements, I thought. Is that what that is trying to address?
I believe that is correct. And this would basically require us to make sure that we are considering those things when we're doing plan amendments.
I think we can, at the end of the sentence, append it with something like that could result in increased residential density or something along those lines.
It's a bit obtuse right now, I think.
Yeah, I didn't capture that from what I read anyways. The density piece.
Yeah, so any edits that commissioners have, we'd be happy to make.
When considering comprehensive plan amendments to increase land use intensity?
Can you go even more specific?
Residential land use intensity? Or residential intensity? Is that what we're getting at? Is specifically when we're increasing the number of residences that are allowed in a particular area that we need to make sure that transportation works, or any kind of land use?
Is this going someplace we shouldn't want it to go? Is this going someplace?
I think the conversation we had was specific to residential.
Okay.
But that may have been because the cases we typically see are in residential zones.
Consider.
And if the issue is with the use of the term concurrency, we can find something else that's a kind of a technical term that deals with the relationship between kind of land use and transportation.
Well, I'm just going to blurt something out, and you guys can, you gentlemen and ladies can improve it, I'm sure. But I would think something like, increased densities will trigger an evaluation by the city for capital improvements to the transportation and utility infrastructure. I'm sure that can be improved.
So I have a question about that.
But I'm just trying to make it,
Clear, I think.
understandable.
Yeah.
So I have a question about that in terms of House Bill 2001, and that one of the things that they said in the legislation is that we wouldn't be required to do like a transportation impacts analysis or anything for zoning, for duplexes and other missing middle housing types. And so would a policy like that put us on the hook for doing that, even though the state expressly intends not to require us to do that?
Well, this is about plan amendments. So it is, basically a comp plan map amendment, I think is what this implies, and it is about, I think the intent again was about increasing intensity or density. So in terms of House Bill 2001, I do not think that it makes a difference because it basically overrides that. But it would, for example, on the hillside property with the upzoning there, we would need to evaluate the transportation system and make sure that it's going to be adequate to serve that. So, but that, we're basically required to do that as part of the state transportation planning rule. The word concurrency adds a little something to this, in that what it basically means is the transportation system has to be improved to the level that's necessary to serve that project or the projects. And I don't know that there's nothing here that really strikes me as totally that's going to cause a major problem. I don't know about either of you, if you guys think it's a big issue, but it feels like the type of policy that is something, you should do when considering a plan amendment.
It just sounds like, due diligence to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think you could come up with a case where it could be applied willy-nilly, to prevent any density and that kind of thing. But I think that those would be, you could conjure a case like that. And so I think you have to be aware of that, concerned about that. But I think that we would, I think the city has to, perform due diligence when they're increasing density.
Yes, and so I guess the key thing here is that we're focusing it on comprehensive plan amendments.
Right.
And so, given that, it's almost a requirement anyway.
And evaluate is different than ensure. Another note here.
As I expressed last week, or 2 weeks ago, there's some problems that get triggered if we have some sort of tie between capital improvement projects, which is a completely separate entity that works on its own budget and works on its own process, and tying that up in the land use document for this. So I think we have to take pains to make sure, and I think we're talking about it in a proper manner, but I think we have to take pains to make sure that we use the right language that doesn't provide some sort of roadblock to land use decisions and things that have to do with the comprehensive plan based on the status and funding of the comprehensive plan.
So does the staff have some recommended language to address those concerns, but makes the statement
Stronger?
more readable, more
Yeah.
understandable to the public, I think?
I'm going to steal this back. We have copies out there, I think.
I could probably go get one, huh? I think we got it.
Maybe it warrants a call out where it could explain that this policy requires that the city evaluate the presence of sidewalks and adequate road surfaces before increasing density in residential areas.
I'm open to anything that would, get the point across,
So I think it's okay to me that the language is a little, that it's wonky because
Yeah.
it's in a comprehensive plan. I mean, some wonkiness is okay, and we've been using call-outs
Soft language, I think, is what we,
Well, you're right. Most of the language is softer.
but I think a call-out would be nice. I can think of a few members who would appreciate that, members of the community.
Well, does it help? I'm not sure how much detail you want to get into there, but I would just at the end add that result in increased land use intensity or density or something to that effect. Does that get it, or is it still too vague?
I think it's still a little vague.
It's still a little vague. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to increase the density, make sure the sidewalks and the pipes are there. That's what this is trying to say, right? Among other things.
Is it,
There could be situations, and I think, I can't think of every situation here, but there can be situations where, like with Senate Bill 2001, where we're faced with decisions or things that take precedent over our comprehensive plan. And so there are possibly things that are coming down the pipe that will call for increased density that we might not have sidewalks and pipes for. And my fear in putting language like that is that it creates a roadblock in our own comprehensive plan for density requirements.
Is that the point?
What's that?
Isn't that the intent, that there's not necessarily a roadblock, but that you have to consider it before moving forward with any?
I think
Further.
consider is something that can be taken into account, but you have to remember the life of this document is pretty long. And so much of what's going to happen with regards to increasing density and doing things, there's going to be considerations that are taken care of in the policy. They're going to be taken care of at the code level, and the code can be changed. So I think it's important to not close the box in a policy that's going to be further vetted through code changes.
So the first thing I was going to say, if I may, what if we change concurrency to capacity? So evaluate transportation capacity and availability of public utilities when considering comprehensive plan map amendments that increase land use intensity.
That's closer.
I was going with something like, consider the adequacy, and this was a little bit softer, consider the adequacy of transportation facilities and utilities when evaluating. I was just flipping the two words, comprehensive plan amendments.
Adequacy? I hate that word. Adequacy, is that a word? I'm like,
A lot of points at Scrabble.
maybe try again.
I mean, transportation adequacy could change over time. It depends on the mode of transportation you're looking at. I mean, there's a lot of things that can occur, whether it's public transit or a more robust bike ped network, a variety of things. If we start to pivot away from an auto-centric network, we could find ourselves in a different mode. So determining adequacy could change over time, I think.
It could be,
what I'm trying to point out is, if it's super loosey-goosey, you can make arguments on either side. I'm not advocating for a certain position. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't tie ourselves into a required evaluation that could trump
Please don't use that word.
the goals of the city.
That's another word I don't like.
I was triggered there, just for the record.
Yeah.
Takes precedent over as the preferred
Take
for
precedence.
sales.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the correction, Commissioner Burns.
I mean, we can move the words around to where it ultimately means the same thing, like, consider availability of public utilities and transportation facilities when reviewing comprehensive plan map amendments.
One more time.
Consider availability of public utilities and transportation facilities when reviewing comprehensive plan map amendments.
Ding, ding, ding.
Is that better?
Yeah.
That's better.
Is the staff okay with that?
I like that.
Could you say it one more time?
Really?
Consider availability of public utilities and transportation facilities when reviewing comprehensive plan map amendments. Satisfies my need to target a specific land use action that this applies to. It's the comprehensive plan map amendment.
Excellent.
The only thing we might, that increase intensity, so we're not forced to conduct the
time.
assessment if it doesn't increase intensity.
I'm open either way to that. I think that's almost implicit, but I mean, I think we're going to get, I think we're going to want to consider it in any circumstances, that involve a land use map amendment. It just might, if it's for some reason was a down zoning, then, the requirements are just less than they would be if it were upzoned.
I can agree with that.
I'm good with it.
Staff, okay?
As a former Washington planner, I'm going to have to shed a tear for not working concurrency into the document. But
I'm sorry, I wanted it there.
something that's required to be addressed.
Perhaps if we put it in the glossary.
There you go. Just.
Guys,
Man, oh, man.
Just past 7.
Well, you were making up for your last comment.
No, it's just past 6.
Oh,
We're going so fast, we're moving backwards.
either that or it's already tomorrow.
Suggestion to start early.
Okay, next.
Now we go to the overarching goals. Is that right?
Yep.
right.
Can I ask a question about how the overarching goals were formed? Were they were formed in the CPIC, right? Or not the CPIC, but the CPAC?
So for the first block of work, which included sections 1, 2, and 12, we did not have this concept. It's something that was introduced later, which is why certain of the overarching section goals were pinned down by council and why certain ones weren't. So the earlier ones, and then we've sort of forgot to do it with housing. And then we never got the urban design ones pinned down. And that's why basically the section goals that were in blocks 2 and 3 of the work plan, which was I think 7 out of the 12 sections, were developed by the CPAC and were pinned down by council, while the remainder were not. And so we went back towards the end of the process, and staff created the overarching section goals. And a few of them were reviewed by CPAC, but they weren't subsequently pinned down by council. Basically, the ones from block 1 were reviewed by CPAC towards the end of the process, so like this past fall, but they had already been pinned down by council. So there's kind of a few different, they were developed in various phases.
Okay, that
We
can
weren't
explain a little
consistent,
bit.
yeah.
What was the intent of having overarching section goals? Was there a stated intent by the CPAC?
Yeah, so there was a discussion just to try to tie together kind of the various items and the highest priority issues that were included within the goals and policies. And so that was something that I believe I'd have to look back at some of the summary notes from some of the CPAC meetings. But yeah, that was the thought process behind it. So if the thought is that they aren't needed, that's something that we can recommend to council.
I think they serve a really important purpose. I was just wondering if there was, any guidance from the CPAC in terms of what they intended those to achieve, what purpose that those serve in, the overall function of the, of the document.
I think it had a lot to do with how many policies were stacked underneath some of these and kind of how to try to organize it better.
So it was reactive to the content of the sections,
Yeah.
not necessarily, okay.
No, because all of the ones we're going to be looking at right now came after the policies were written.
Right.
Normally you would think about the overarching goal and then fill the policies in. These were, more than half of these came afterwards. So I think the big question is, does the overarching goal kind of capture what that whole set of policies delivers?
Yes, so that's a counterintuitive function compared to, kind of how I would interpret, a hierarchical, structure for the document where, really the way that I saw, the utility that I saw for the overarching section goals was to very strongly and directly connect the goals and policies within those sections with the vision language. And so that was in particular why I structured my matrix the way that I did, where I have a column for, the current draft section language, section goal language. And then what I did is I captured what I consider to be the applicable language from the vision statement as it would apply to each of these, and I added that into that second larger column, I guess the fourth column on my matrix, under applicable vision statement language. And so actually, the entire vision statement is represented across, all of the rows of this column. So the vision statement is very applicable to, all of our content. But I saw this as an opportunity to really clearly honor the vision statement by tying it into directly into the goal language of the comprehensive plan document itself. And so that was why I rewrote the housing one the way that I did, was to try to capture, words that were used in the vision statement. So that there is a very visible and direct way of connecting that work and that effort that so many community members participated in into the final document that is, resulting, from that. Or final land use document that's resulting from that. So I don't know, obviously I don't think that we want to go back and try to, redo anything that's already been pinned down. But at least for the ones that haven't been pinned down, I'd just like us to consider whether there's a strong enough connection between the language of the overarching section goal and the vision statement language that would, apply to those goals and policies.
Any comments on Commissioner Edge's recommendations? They're kind of way back.
Thank you.
This is his proposal, and don't pay attention to those either.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to find. Give us just a moment to assimilate the information here.
And do all the commissioners have that attachment 4 from the February 11th packet?
No.
I've got it.
Do you just want to go section by section to keep it kind of?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm focused on section 1.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah. I should have said.
I don't want to try to bite off too much before we.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to,
Commissioner Losfeld, would you like me to go make you a quick copy?
No, that's okay. Thank you, David. Since we are starting with section 1, do you want to, what's your proposal for section 1? Otherwise, I think we should just go the whole thing.
I'm sorry.
It's not the whole thing, right?
yeah, your proposal
You're not suggesting.
Your proposal is in the far right column, right?
No, there is no proposal.
Right, the proposed column is blank until you get to section 7. That was the only one that I actually worked up an example.
okay.
Okay,
All
okay.
right.
That's what I was wondering. The goals, I was reading goals and objectives. So should we start on overarching section goal number 1?
Yes, please.
Okay. My sense is there's a lot of words here and not all of them are necessary. I suggested that the following: engage in an inclusive, collaborative, transparent, accountable, and equitable decision-making process through a broad range of strategies that inform and involve a full spectrum. I know that's a phrase that's used a lot, even though spectrums are inherently full, of community members and established neighborhood organizations, period. Do you want me to say it again, or do you want to?
Well, do any of the commissioners have any comments? I mean, does that capture, section 1 on community engagement?
The simplification in the first 2/3 of it, I like, but I think that the part about groups who have traditionally been left out of the planning process is important language that was included intentionally, and I think we need to work that into your recommendation, Commissioner Lisfeld. But I think you're going in the right direction with just making it less wordy.
The direct correlating term in the vision statement language could be eliminating disparities is something that we could try to work into that, or because I agree, I like the spirit of the tail end of that as drafted.
What if you said full spectrum of community members, particularly those traditionally left out of the planning process, and established neighborhood organizations?
Yeah. I also like moving that forward in the list. I like that.
Can you do the?
This actually might be useful if we just,
Track changes, yeah.
would it be useful for you to go through your changes, and so Ms. Eberling can put the changes in and we can see as we go? Would that be useful to everyone?
That would be useful, and I think the changes were kind of too dramatic to do in track changes mode. I'd suggest you just type down Commissioner Lisfeld's recommendation so we can do a side-by-side, if that would be acceptable.
So I dictate to you then. Engage in an inclusive, collaborative, transparent, accountable, and equitable decision-making process through a broad range of strategies that inform and involve a full spectrum of community members, in particular, those traditionally left out of the planning process, and established neighborhood organizations, period. Is there another comma
Another
after
comment.
process?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Not that process, the process
Oh,
at the
yeah.
The
bottom.
bottom process.
Not that process, but the other one.
I think we could kill the first process if we just want to start trimming words. Equitable decision-making.
Yeah.
And you can remove the "and" before inclusive.
And I think we're moving in a good direction here. I could almost just remove established neighborhood organizations. The NDAs have an entire goal with 4 policies underneath it, kind of calling them out. So it seems maybe
They're included in the full spectrum.
they're included in the full spectrum, and the established neighborhood organizations are already kind of something of a I don't know, a group that has a venue for representation and a place in the policies.
I would agree.
And this is the kind of situation where we really appreciate fast typing.
I was just surprised how fast I did it, so.
Well done.
Any other thoughts on section 1?
So with this, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I have a problem with goal 1.1. Is that up for discussion? Chair Macy,
Anything's open for discussion.
were you going to move on?
No, I was just going to ask ourselves, I like this language better, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't changing it in a way that's inconsistent with the other goals. I don't think we are. I was just going to take a moment to reflect on.
Would you mind scrolling up just slightly so we can see the top line? Thank you.
The only hesitancy I had was about just the word city, or the city, like specifically calling out city. Is it clear that decision-making is,
Yeah.
I think it's implicit in what we're doing overall.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other changes to overarching section 1? What were your comments on 1.1?
in goal 1.1, fostering is twice in there, and I don't know if there's a missing, okay, so increase community participation by providing there's a couple spaces in there, thorough information, comma, consulting with community and fostering collaborative partnerships. What is thorough information?
I think it's been edited too many times.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just gotten picked apart, yeah.
Okay.
So when Commissioner Edge copied this into his matrix, it makes more sense with the formatting where the first part of a sentence is actually the bold title to the goal, and then there's the sub-goal. So that's why the word foster appears twice. It's in the goal title and in the goal description, but they've run together in the matrix.
So it actually looks better in the, I think, in the comprehensive document.
Okay, I can get over that.
Okay.
But there's thorough information's not maybe the best
Detailed
way.
information.
There we go.
Okay,
That's good.
with fewer spaces.
With fewer spaces.
Okay. We ready to go on to section 2, overarching?
Yes. I'll start again. And I just wondered, should arts be plural? Encourage and implement art, cultural, and history-based programs. Arts, cultural.
I think it's art.
I think art is plural in its nature.
I think so.
And I also had a little trigger when I read celebrate Milwaukee's diversity. I don't know that Milwaukee is historically diverse or currently diverse. So that was,
The diversity it has should be celebrated.
Okay, I can agree with that.
And if we don't update this for another 30 years, then it'll probably look different in 30 years. But we'll update it before then.
Okay.
For what it's worth, the Milwaukee Arts Committee has an S after
Is it?
arts.
Okay. Overruled, I'm fine with that.
I'm having trouble with the word cultural as opposed to, I mean, cultural means about, yeah, it was just, you had problems with the word arts for the flow.
Yeah.
I was thinking culture. No,
Culture.
that's not the same as cultural. So I'm okay. I can back off of what I was just wondering about.
Well, I think it's everything is supposed to be based, so it would be arts-based. I think it would be culture-based as opposed to cultural-based.
That's what I was just wondering. But then is culture the same as, does that have the same meaning as cultural? You know, when you talk about a program.
Aesthetic.
I think it's probably okay. Culture, arts, culture.
Cultural refers to
history-based.
culture by definition.
Do we want to put a dash behind each one?
Yeah.
What? Dashes?
Art dash, culture dash, history dash.
English major?
What would Mrs. Zannarini do? Is my
Not, but I can hear
Something there, really.
my college professor speaking in my ear. That is,
I'm a long way from 8th grade. No,
okay. Everybody else seems fine with it, though.
Was it culture dash and history dash based programs? Is that what we were going for?
No,
no.
no,
Cultural dash and history?
no dashes.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper grammar is when you have three,
Series.
yeah, basically a series of three descriptives for programs.
Oh, it's not based that we're attaching it
They
to?
are, though.
No, they are being, all three are being attached to base, so it would
Oh, so
technically
you're
be encourage and
hyphenating all of them.
implement.
Arts based,
Yeah, so it's
culture based, and history based.
arts-based.
Yeah, like dance and painting
Denny, I get it.
And
But is it, okay.
We could also,
Just
I mean,
eliminate this discussion by removing the dash and the based?
No,
No?
you need it everywhere.
Encourage and implement history, arts, and cultural programs.
that might be better.
I'm following the order of history, arts, and culture in the section title that just reads a little less
Yeah.
jarringly.
Winner. I think that's it. Arts.
Historical.
Historical, archaeological, and cultural. Maybe we could probably kill the word
Arty.
cultural at the very end and just say heritage.
Arty. That's it. It could be arts-based in this historical, arts-based, and cultural programs.
Treating characteristic of history.
Artistic.
Art-like, artistic, no, none of those are right.
So one thing.
I mean, despite what the committee's name is, I just don't think arts
I think it's just art.
I think it's art.
It's art. Encourage and implement historical art and cultural programs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do it,
Okay.
do it.
I think that works.
So one line I really like from the vision statement is art and creativity are woven into the fabric of the city. And I'm just wondering how we can try to bring that language into this section goal.
Weave historical art and cultural programs into.
I mean, again, this is section goal language. This can be really soft and fluffy, and doesn't need the actionable verbs, and you know what I mean. It's like this isn't the policy language, so we can be a little more
Aspirational?
and alliteral
I think if you're going to do it that way, then it probably makes sense to
or alliterative.
structure it, encourage and implement programs, projects, and spaces that weave history, arts, and culture into something, and then finish with, and that celebrate Milwaukee's, kind of flip the structure of the sentence.
Yeah.
Just so we're not dealing with the weird way that we're doing historical arts and cultural programs.
David, why don't you call that out and let's see how it looks.
So encourage and implement programs, projects, and spaces that weave history, art, and culture. And then this is where I don't know,
Into.
Into the fabric of the city. And that celebrate.
You might not need the rest of that.
Can I make a couple of refinements? What if it were encourage and implement programs and spaces that weave history, art, and culture into the fabric of the city while celebrating Milwaukee's diversity
Period.
and
Sorry.
I could do a period because I'm all about efficiency here. Milwaukee's diversity, period, or Milwaukee's diversity and unique historic, archaeological, and cultural heritage.
Yeah, you probably don't need it's right there.
I would like to transpose, I don't know the right word, programs and spaces need to be flipped because you're encouraging spaces and implementing programs. You could be encouraging programs, but you're not implementing spaces. And just for the point of order, according to at least one scholar on the internet, the hyphens would be proper in the previous language.
They were called dashes earlier, and I just wanted to
There is a difference between a dash, a
thank
hyphen.
you.
we could still crowdsource this thing on Wikipedia if we'd like to.
Disband the
go fund it too?
CPIC completely and just leave it to rest. Okay.
Maybe instead of while celebrating, just say into the February city. And celebrate Milwaukee's diverse and unique.
So you want to encourage and implement while celebrating, or encourage and implement
Things that celebrate.
in celebration of?
I think and celebrate.
Okay, so let's try this. Put a comma after city, take out while. And say and that celebrate
Wait a minute, art and culture into the fabric of the city.
Yeah, I agree with that because I don't think that necessarily everything that's done in art is going to be necessarily celebrating Milwaukee's diversity. I mean, they may, but they may not. So I think that that's a more appropriate stating of those two different things.
And again, this is not policy language, so it can be really soft and, not completely, it's not hemming us in, really.
And we don't want projects, it's spaces and programs only.
I don't know that it matters. It just needs to be really legible, and in my opinion, it needs to really, tightly connect with the vision statement and explain what policies, what types of policies are contained in this section.
Could we just use projects instead of spaces?
Yeah.
Projects
Yeah,
and programs.
I'm uncomfortable with spaces because you can't implement a space. It's kind of awkward sounding.
So creating a space could be a project.
Implement project.
I know that's,
Grammatically, I like that better.
I know that designers having trouble with this one.
I don't think that was a grammar edit, was it?
Create spaces, projects, and programs that weave.
The only thing I didn't like was the word that and that celebrate. Can it not just be and?
So it kind of, maybe, but
It's not consistent with the tense of the verbs above.
correct.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
I think it is too.
I'm looking that up right now.
Maybe.
What you're trying to do is say is just, it's not projects and programs that weave things into it's two different things, and so it's projects and programs that celebrate Milwaukee's diversity and unique historical, archaeological, and cultural heritage. It's not necessarily this big run-on singular concept, right? We're separating two ideas and
That weave and that celebrate.
Yeah. You're encouraging and implementing projects and programs that celebrate, but you're
Okay.
also encouraging and implementing projects and programs that weave.
yes.
So it's two concepts.
Yeah.
I vote we move on. Chair Macy.
Everyone okay with section 2 as it's written?
Intensive is not a word.
What?
Intensive?
Okay, we're
Is that
moving
what
on
you
to
said?
section 7.
Intensive? No, I didn't say that word.
Sensitive.
What did you say?
Oh, no, I said the
tense.
verb tense.
Oh.
It's not consistent with the verb tense. Maybe I said it quickly.
So this is the one section where we had a definitive recommendation from Commissioner Edge.
Yes.
It was a very
Lead off the
bigly
discussion about
recommendation.
what you're proposing there.
Bigly
Commissioner.
recommendation.
So this is one where, and this is what really, inspired me to give a stronger or a closer look at the section goal language, is that I felt like the section goal language, which can be, very soft and aspirational and tie into the vision statement language, for the housing section, I felt like it left a lot to be desired in those terms, and that it should be, kind of reaching for the stars, and where do we want to be in 20 or 30 years, not, and if you look at it in those terms, it's like, what is this housing section trying to accomplish for the city in 20 or 30 years? Is it, it just seems to, as drafted, it just seems to fall flat on me. It doesn't feel aspirational. It doesn't feel like, we're really reaching for what it is that I think the vision statement is trying to do. And so,
Spot on in moving away from price levels and moving towards housing security.
Yeah, that was my big
Security is
hang
so
up
good.
on this one, was price levels. I like it, Commissioner Edge, sorry, I'm stammering here. Does it go too far? Achieve housing security.
I mean, this isn't
loaded.
policy. This isn't policy language. This is a goal. This is a goal for what our housing policies should try to do for the city in 20 years.
I feel your passion. I'm just wondering, do you feel like the policies adequately
Live up to that.
achieve housing security? That's, it's a loaded, there's a lot there.
One moment. Mary, do you have Commissioner Edge's proposal? It might be useful just to put it on the screen.
Do you want me to read it to you? Or, okay.
What do you need? Okay.
And then so I'll let you think about that. And then the other thing, I don't disagree with it, but physical ability is not really highlighted in the rest of the section. As in, if there's accessibility or universal accessibility or, diversity of physical abilities or whatever it might be. It's not really, unless you can point toward it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's implicit in the equity language, that we're talking about everybody, no matter who. And, that is a way of spelling it out deliberately.
But if we don't have a policy that actually,
we have a universal design.
7.1.5, encourage development of new homes and modification of existing homes to accommodate people of all ages and abilities through the use
Okay.
of universal design.
okay. All right, then what about achieve housing security? Is anybody else curious about that phrase?
Well, let me ask Commissioner Edge, how would you define housing security? Because I think it could mean a lot of different things to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's expressed in the vision language is that we're getting housing that people can afford, that they can access, that, meets, that is available to them and not going to be, taken away from them. And so our renter protection, policies and, our universal design policies and affordability policies and, having sufficient supply, through land use intensification. I think all of these policies, combine to create a framework where housing security is a possibility.
Should it be just slightly different than, like, promote or foster, rather than achieve?
I mean, this is the softest, least enforceable language of the comp plan. I think that this is where we can absolutely reflect the spirit of the vision statement process, and that is that people want other people to have housing security in this city. It's not that we want to give it a shot, it's that we want to get there. That's the goal. The policies try to accomplish that. I feel like it's selling us short if we suggest that or imply that our goal is not to actually try to follow through on achieving it, but the goal is just to move the bar a little bit. Well, no, the goal is to make sure that people have a safe, healthy place to live, no matter who they are.
Does the staff have any comments on Commissioner Edge's proposal?
Yeah, I think that this is a valid point if we want to get more aspirational and more aggressive in how we want to try to tackle the issue of housing. I think that the overarching section goal is the most appropriate way. I would say that now it is, the way that it's currently written is very much a statewide planning goal 10 focused analysis of all the different things that need to be covered in goal 10. And so I think, looking at it after the fact, it is written that way and not maybe as consistent, not entirely consistent with some of the other ones. So, yeah, I think that there is some, I think this would be the place if that's the direction from the commission.
Statewide Planning Goal 10 includes language that says, encourage the availability of adequate numbers of needed housing units at price ranges and rent levels which are commensurate with the financial capabilities of Oregon households, and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, that's, so that capturing, I think that housing goal was intended to sort of capture that intent, that a range of housing types at a variety of housing types at a range of price levels. That's one level of security, is being able to afford your housing. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other about the wording.
Well,
I don't think housing security is as clear as it could be, though. I mean,
I really like the way that Commissioner Edge's proposal reads, but I share the concerns. Is it understandable? Because despite the fact that we may not like, the mention of price levels, it probably means something to more people.
Well, it's in the goal. It's in the statewide planning goals. We need to consider that when we're doing major amendments to the plan. So it's not you don't have to put it in here. You don't have to repeat that language.
If we wanted to split the difference, it could be something like provide affordable, livable, safe housing for Milwaukee residents of yada yada.
That's a pretty good idea.
Why don't you give us some?
So instead of to achieve housing security, say provide safe, affordable, livable housing. And you can kill the word to. Just most of the other goals start with the verb. And then kill the word security. And kill the word to in front, and then we're ready to rock. I guess livable shows up at the beginning and the end, and that's...
The thing about security is it does indicate some kind of timeline, like forever. Like, it's the housing, I don't know, is there something about the edit that might indicate the sustainability of this?
Stable.
Replace livable with stable, because livable comes later as well. Is that still consistent with the aspiration that you want to see here, Commissioner Edge?
Yeah, I'm really fond of the term housing security, but this captures the spirit of what that kind of wonky term is intending to mean.
Well, the issue of secure and stable, I think, are important. I'm not sure that when people read that, they'll understand it. Stable housing, what does that mean? My house on a level foundation?
Yeah, because again, the point of using the term housing security is that, it's like, again, renters won't get, we have policies that protect renters from just getting, evicted for no cause, what I mean, or whatever. I mean, it's, housing that won't just get taken away from you, or rent won't get, jacked up so fast that, you can't afford to stay, where you've been living, those kinds of things. And we have those policies. We have, we already have some of those things on the books because of the housing emergency and some of the, city code and programs that have been put in place, over the last couple of years. And so it's kind of, backing that up with.
I completely agree with what you're saying, but it seems like the overarching goal shouldn't require that much of an explanation. It should be very legible. It's almost like it requires its own call out so that people can understand it. And I think if anywhere should never have a call out, your overarching goal should just be.
It's almost a call out in and of itself of this. It's almost a call out of the section.
So this would be a call out within a call out.
Yeah, and I don't want that. I don't want that either.
I think.
I mean, again, I'm striving for, even when I was suggesting some larger or more substantive feeling edits to some of the policy language, the whole idea behind that was for this to be legible. And so, again, what I consider legible and what most other people consider legible might not always be the same thing. And so
I don't think this terminology is any more sophisticated than anything we've used in the policies throughout this document. I mean, I'm not certain what grade level we're writing towards for this document, but I think there's a level of sophistication that's implied in the policies that are under these goals, and I don't think this is jumping ahead of that.
This or housing security?
Either.
Oh, okay.
Either. Both the terms housing security and housing stability are used in the literature around affordability and housing. They're both pretty well recognized terms. I'm only offering these as comments as you deliberate on language, but I don't think we're shooting over the sophistication level of the document with any of the language we've talked about.
I would just say that I think stability as a noun is better than stable as a verb for whatever reason, just the way that it reads. So I think secure is a better adjective than stable. But so if it was provide safe, secure, affordable housing for Milwaukee residents, I think might be.
I see that as having good locks.
That's my concern too.
Yeah, housing security and secure housing read a little differently, perhaps.
So should we
Well, what you're doing is you're providing security and stability for the residents.
Provide Milwaukee residents with safe, affordable, stable housing. That doesn't help.
I like it as it reads right there, but that's just my opinion, which doesn't matter for much.
I'm comfortable recommending this language.
What's that?
I'm comfortable recommending the language is written.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think as long as we feel like the point is legible and we're getting the point across, I think that it's great because, again, this is not in and of itself a policy statement from which we are drawing an action. It's just a heading for this section or a summary.
I'm sorry, I'm going to make this more complicated, but tell me where in Section 7 we talk about housing security.
I think he was talking about the background literature, the background information for Section 7.
In the comprehensive document?
Yeah.
Well, we support the Fair Housing Act as one thing that would provide some of that.
Were you talking about
Implement and support programs to reduce displacement of renters. There's a policy there. So, I mean, I think there are some things in there that get at that.
I misunderstood your question. Sorry.
Well, I still think it's going to be open for some interpretation of what that means, and I'm okay with it as long as we address it within,
the policies?
the fuller section, and it sounds like we have. Everybody okay with 7?
Yes.
Staff okay?
Yep.
Let's go to section 8.
Except that you've exceeded my predicted end time.
Is this on the
that-
watch where we went back in
We had
time?
no bets, but, you know, it just-
Sounds aspirational to me.
it was definitely aspirational.
Not stable.
Okay, section 8. Urban design and land use.
I wanted to remove some words from this one too.
Go ahead.
What if you eliminate foster the and say design, I guess might need design private development and public spaces and facilities in a way that enhances community livability, environmental sustainability, social interaction, connectivity for all modes of transportation, and high-quality landscape and architectural design, period.
Before we remove that last section, I would like to discuss it because it's kind of a theme, I think, that we've heard in a number of the public testimonies. Would I be correct in that statement?
I think that was a lot of the public, the oral and written comments were regarding that.
Yeah. That's the only reason I kind of felt like it was an issue.
We took out high quality a lot, didn't we? Quality referring to something outside the scope of this. Am I wrong? Didn't we talk about?
I think we didn't incorporate a lot of the comments that called for adding quality within section 8 in I don't know how much we struck from the proposed language coming from the CPAC, but
So, I can't believe I'm suggesting this, take out and high-quality landscape and architectural design. I think they'll revoke my license and just put, and supports the unique form or the uniqueness of Milwaukee neighborhoods.
I'd really like to try to get the Milwaukee's neighborhoods are the centers of daily life from the vision statement. Support the unique form and function of Milwaukee, of all of Milwaukee neighborhoods as the centers of daily life. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
I have I don't know if I have a suggestion. I don't care for the word foster either, but the city can't have a goal of designing private development.
It's true.
So I don't know how to parse those words to come up with an action that the city would do. Promote the design of private development and public spaces. Thank you, Denny. That's good.
There you go, now you've eliminated all design. Typical.
It could be to enhance instead of in a way that the public facilities,
It's too wordy.
it's one.
To enhance.
I love the way we just trade off our little edits here.
I don't know if we need all in front of Milwaukee neighborhoods if we're talking about them as centers of.
Yes.
Do we need to call out for all modes of travel, or can we just say connectivity and know that?
Yeah. Because,
I feel like that hurts a little bit.
Multimodal?
It's like we're multimodal everywhere, so we maybe don't need to call it out as
Yeah,
much.
but-
It's so ubiquitous to our
Lots of
DNA that.
places.
Yeah.
You already got rid of concurrency. Now you're getting rid of multimodal.
and
I would also, I concur, I think that can come out.
multimodal connectivity.
Concur. I concur.
Twist the knife.
I would propose that and support the unique form, that form come out, and form and just the unique function, because none of the, I think the things that are being promoted above support the function of the neighborhood. I think form is kind of awkward there, but that's just my opinion.
So form speaks to the urban design part a little bit, but
Like massing.
yeah,
I think it's okay, though.
I think it's okay too. That's yeah.
This is the-
I mean,
this
again, we're
is
not
true.
changing policies. We're,
Yeah,
you
and-
know.
Right.
And this is what environmental design is all about, using design to affect behavior or function. That's
We
my
have consensus
undergraduate
on it?
Very
degree.
poetic.
It's my undergraduate degree.
I would support this as written and
As the center.
suggest we move on.
Oh, it looks good.
Okay.
This is good.
Staff okay? Let's go to section 12.
We're supposed to come back through the rest of them.
Only if you wanna.
Are we practicing social distancing tonight?
No,
It doesn't look like it.
clearly.
Probably could have spread
A
it
little
out.
later?
.802, yeah.
I didn't have any edits for this one.
I think section 11 actually was within,
It is. Section 11 is one we're supposed to look at.
yeah.
It is?
Yep.
It is, yeah, that was one, because that was one of the first ones, that was from block 1, so it wasn't included originally.
Isn't prosperity and economic well-being virtually synonyms?
You can prosper in other ways than economically.
In the economic development section of the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, we don't have a mindful.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about economic well-being than prosperity.
What if you just took out economic?
Prosperity and well-being, that works.
But how would well-being of Milwaukee's businesses? Maybe just take out and economic well-being.
I got a different view. I think that it would be better if we just enhances the economic well-being.
Or enhances the well-being.
Well, I'm okay with economic. I'm a little bit concerned about the word prosperity. That
I don't like the word prosperity
yeah.
here.
Why?
I love prosperity, but I think it can mean a lot of different things. And this is about economic development and economic well-being, I think.
So there's some relevant vision statement language.
Prosperity.
There's community-minded local businesses and magnets for innovation and models for environmentally sensitive manufacturing and high-wage jobs. I don't know how much of that we might want to try to capture.
Prosperity is a successful, flourishing, or thriving condition, especially in financial respect, good fortune.
I can yield to prosperity.
I think they're duplicating, and I think we only need one or the other.
Well,
So if two people don't like prosperity, then economic well-being is totally acceptable.
I guess prosperity would be more aspirational versus economic well-being might be adequate.
That's a good point.
Danny, you shouldn't have told them about your,
Well, there are lots of metrics to determine
When
whether
you're
a
done.
business is, the well-being of a business. It might not always be economic.
so does anyone have any problems with redlining economic well-being or prosperity?
No.
Okay. So Commissioner Edge, I mean, you were, I think that you had some good points about the vision statement, and I'm not sure,
I'm trying.
which ones are the most, which ones do you, are the real sort of important ones, you think?
Community-minded local businesses might be easy to get. Magnets for innovation might be easy. And models for environmentally sensitive manufacturing and high-wage jobs might be a little hard.
You can maybe stick the, I was going to say before, where the, after local economy, that
encourages innovation.
promotes, what did you say about innovation? Promotes innovation.
The magnets for innovation is the exact term.
Or promotes innovation and enhances prosperity.
That
I mean,
works.
at least that would seem like the place you could maybe that.
I would also really love to get something about environmental sustainability in here, because I think it's worth noting how environmental sustainability does not come at the cost of economic development. And I think our policies reflect that.
If community-minded just said environmentally sustainable, I would be happy with that. Instead of, yeah.
It's way broader than community-minded.
Ship it.
After resilient.
Feels like a Christmas tree.
What?
Just putting ornaments.
I like where we're getting with this.
You have some additions?
No. I mean, I want community-minded, but I don't know where to put it. No, I just want to pile things on. It gets, illegible at a certain point of piling on.
I like it as it reads.
It's good as it reads, yeah.
Okay. I think we have a consensus on 11. Can we go to 12 now?
Already there. I was hoping you solved this one, Joseph.
I know this is like akin to Lauren striking, or Commissioner Roosevelt striking words about architecture, but can we replace logical with equitable?
What?
That doesn't compute.
Sure. I don't know that logical adds much there.
I guess I'll get thrown out of my Mensa chapter for that.
Livable manner kind of reads a little weird to me. Provision of city services in a livable manner.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Good question.
Not a good sign if
Equitable, I think.
that's the question.
Can we strike livable and replace it with logical?
Sustainable.
Sustainable.
That's
wouldn't be
good.
a bad one.
And maybe we just kill everything after manner that we're already coordinating.
There's a lot in this section that deals with that sort of coordination element.
Maybe just say in cooperation with regional partners.
Yeah, that would work.
Instead of enumerating local, regional, state agencies and service providers, I'm just suggesting replace everything from local down with regional partners.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just take those out, yeah. Take out other also.
Should there be another comma after services? Coordinate future urban growth development.
Urban growth development and provision of city services.
Oh,
No, it's
it's
the
not urban growth development, it's urban growth.
comma, development, comma, and provision of city services. So it's a 3-part list.
All right, all right.
Let's see, partner.
I like it.
Looks good? Staff okay? Okay. We have one that was one section that I understand has been pinned down, but there has been some discussion about it being very long and rather verbose. It's section 9.
Section 9.
I'm a little bit worried about sending something to the city council that they've already pinned down, but there has been some discussion that this thing is pretty long for an overreaching section goal.
3 sentences.
It's the only one that's more than one sentence. I think we'd be doing them a favor by revising it for consistency, because when they pinned it down, they didn't have the full suite to look at for comparison.
Who wants to take the knife first?
Let's see what it looks like with just the first sentence.
That's where I was going to. Seems like everything that you just crossed out is encapsulated in a policy below.
Right, and policies are the actionable elements of this, so, we don't need to spell it all out in the section chapter, or the section goal.
Are there any key elements from the last 2 sentences that we don't want to lose?
What about existing underserved areas of Milwaukee's community and accessible for all ages and abilities?
That seems to be the key aspirational part to weave in.
Agreed.
Can't say that definitively.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we need to do that.
And then it's mentions existing facilities, so I don't know if it's maintain and provide for the recreation. No. Maybe it's not needed.
Provide for the recreational needs of present and future city residents. Preserve natural areas.
I think take out also.
Yeah. While preserving natural areas and focusing on existing
Take out existing. I think it's just underserved areas. Are they talking about, I mean, that says underserved areas. Is there a consideration of underserved populations?
Shouldn't, while preserving natural areas, come at the end? Just, you don't need to do it yet, but
I think all ages and abilities can go into providing for the recreational needs of present and future city residents
Of all.
ages and abilities.
Comma.
Focused and underserved.
While also preserving natural areas.
focused on underserved areas feels awkward.
It does.
It might be better like with an emphasis on or a special focus on, as opposed, I don't know.
With an emphasis on underserved areas. How about we change underserved areas to underserved communities?
Yeah.
I like that.
That sort of hits both areas of geography and populations.
Yeah.
Do we have to have the word also in there? Can we say while preserving natural areas?
Yeah, I don't think we need also.
Preserving and enhancing. No, no more words, sorry.
Fostering.
Say while conserving natural areas.
Serving.
Yeah.
It's better.
I think I like well also in there, but I know you guys just took it out. It just feels like an extra, sort of, it doesn't flow with the rest of it, so it's like an extra idea.
I don't love that conserving the natural areas is the afterthought, but
How about, it seems there's something above that talks about, in the language we cut out, support dedication and acquisition of land for recreation use and/or habitat conservation. So there's an idea that we would enhance natural areas in addition to conserving the ones we already have.
we're providing for the recreational needs and access to natural areas.
Enhance
Enhance.
natural areas while, and provide for the blah, 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 blah. Does that go first?
I like enhancing advancing here. It's more to the spirit of what we're going for. I don't think we need to spell out the dedications or whatever, but
Does the comma after abilities still belong?
What if we did enhance natural areas and provide for the recreational needs? And put it first?
yeah, that's all right, make it bold.
20 font, underlined.
No mistaking what the priority is here. No, that's great. I like this. I like what we've done here.
I would say that you,
Section 9?
that was more,
What if we put ecosystem in there
ooh,
instead of areas?
We never used it before.
Is that,
Natural areas are a specific type of thing. Ecosystems are much broader, and this is specifically for parks. And so in the context of a parks and recreation, a natural area is a specific thing.
This is good.
Okay.
Everyone okay with Section 9?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Much better.
So we have gone through the sections that weren't pinned down and the one where we just couldn't contain ourselves, which I think was a good exercise. And we gave the city two things to do, as I remember, which are 8.1 and 8.3.7. You got those? I just want to make sure that we're all clear.
8.1.6, yeah, on the daylighting creeks.
Yep.
And 837 was considered the availability of public utilities and transportation facilities when, wait a minute, is that right? When reviewing comp plan amendments, or did you write that down?
I wrote it down.
Yeah,
I wrote
that's
it down.
what, that was
Yeah,
what it
that's what
was.
I have as well.
Consider the availability of public utilities and transportation facilities when reviewing comprehensive plan map amendments.
So the reason I wanted to recap that is because I feel like, at this point, we're going to talk about sending this to the city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like
Comfortable?
I'd like to point out, David, when you do your stuff on daylighting, make sure daylighting is in the glossary. So make sure it's consistent with whatever
What's in
language.
We did, yeah, and we've actually already created this. We missed a few things.
So, can I ask the city staff to quickly address attachment 2? Because I understand that we have to send two things to the city council, basically the comprehensive plan, and then attachment 2. Is that right?
So the attachment 2, yeah, is the findings that the official action is by the council, but is also presented to the
I have a
planning
little
commission.
background on it, having talked to Denny the other day, but I think maybe the other commissioners might just benefit from a brief discussion of what's in attachment 2.
Well, whenever we make a comp plan amendment or a text amendment, we have to address the code criteria. And the findings basically say how we are meeting the code criteria. It's really a formality in a lot of ways. I don't know that there's anything in there that is inconsistent with the work we've been doing to make modifications.
And for comprehensive plan amendments, we're also required to make findings for consistency with the statewide planning goals and also with the Metro's urban growth management functional plan.
Yeah,
And
so,
so those are included as exhibits to attachment 2.
So the only thing I was going to mention to the commissioners is that there's really not any room for editing this, I don't believe. The city staff has basically got the recommendations in the basic attachment 1 that identifies the city requirements. Then if you look at Exhibit A, those are the Metro requirements, and then Exhibit B are the state requirements. So it's basically a rationale of the comprehensive plan, how the planning process has achieved all of those requirements from that hierarchy of regulatory bodies.
And if someone were to appeal the plan, the most likely thing that would happen is we'd need to come back and maybe enhance some findings.
Thank you for the explanation. I wouldn't have understood without that. For the attachment, what is it, Exhibit A of Attachment 2, some of the policies are from an earlier iteration, and so we'll need to just, like 8.1.1 is maybe one or two iterations old. So I think our...
Some of the examples in there, yeah, that are, yeah, we might need to
Yeah, so we can update those, yes. Yeah, these were largely done earlier, and so if we didn't incorporate all the changes, we can go through all of these before they...
So we would add a direction to staff or a clause to our recommendation that we'll vote on tonight that any example policies will be in Exhibit. Attachment 2, Exhibit A will
be audited against the...
It would be audited against, yeah, against the rest of, yes. Thank you.
That's a good catch. So let me ask staff, do we make this in one motion, or do we need two?
It can be in one.
Okay.
Do we need to discuss the Chapter 3 background summary?
I think that would be a good idea.
There were edits made for environmental justice, I believe.
Correct. You have a handout that had the extra section.
So this language came directly from the Public Works Director,
Through the city manager.
City Manager.
Was there specific items that changed, or was the whole thing changed, or?
Was it just the underline?
Yeah. Mary, you want to?
It's, the previous edition just had a health bullet point, and now it's environmental justice and health. And then there's an additional call-out box. Those are the only changes.
Those are the call-out boxes, the new one.
Yeah.
Would you say that again?
So there was on page 62, well, my version 62, it just initially said, there was a bullet that said health, and now it says environmental justice and health. And underneath, the text underneath that bullet point has been changed.
I do not know where we are. Anybody find it?
Here.
Yeah, it's in environmental justice and health on page numbered 62.
Oh, I was looking at the big book, so I didn't have the page numbers right. Okay. Okay.
I don't have any problem with the proposed change, call-out box.
comments?
I'd
like to thank staff for making those edits.
I'm kind of curious if we can get a new picture on the cover. Knowing that this document's going to be around for 20 years, it's unfortunate that it didn't come just 1 year later with the Axle Tree in there and the housing that's happening Milwaukee High School.
We can see what we have. I know that they've flown some drones and provided some aerial images, or at least drone images.
It was honestly a placeholder at this point.
Oh, okay, good. It's a nice image, but
Be out of date in 2 years.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 more years it'll be. Okay. Do you need a motion?
Yep.
Ugh.
Is there a script for that?
Yeah,
We
do we just use,
we didn't give you a script, but I could kind of give you an idea what to say.
Okay.
Which would be, you recommend that the city council approve the draft comprehensive plan and findings with the changes that you made tonight.
okay,
And the proposed revisions to the findings for consistency with the current version of the policies.
I make a motion that the Planning Commission approve or recommend approval of the comprehensive plan draft policy document as amended by the Planning Commission with what?
Findings,
The findings
as updated.
as updated.
Yeah.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion
Thank
passes.
you.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Felt too easy for just, nice.
May I make a few comments?
Please do.
So this process has been going on longer than I've been on this commission. I think I joined the commission right before Block 1 was pinned down, and so it's really been 2 years, I think, that we've been working on that, and so it's been a little bit longer than that. The amount of public engagement and the amount of effort by community members and volunteers and staff that went into this is remarkable. And I'm ultimately very proud to be here today so that we can vote to recommend approval of this to the City Council, because it is a beautiful document. I think everyone has done an excellent job putting this together. And I want to also pay respect to the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee for all of the work that they did. And I'd also like to thank this commission, including commissioners who are no longer on the commission and commissioners who are not here tonight for entertaining a lot of my suggestions and lengthy commentary over the months. I've had a lot to say about this, and I feel really, 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 really good about where we ended up, and that is in no small part due to us here on this commission and the CPAC. And I'm very pleased that we really substantially honored the language that the CPAC gave us all along the way, and what ended up being pinned down is very consistent with what the CPAC provided us in the first place. And so I feel great about this, and I'm really proud of having been able to participate in this. And I hope my other commissioners feel the same way, because this is a mountain of effort that went into this, and I'm very, very pleased with the product that we've recommended approval of tonight.
There was there's one person on your list of thank yous who it would have been weird for you to call out, and that's you, Commissioner Edge, that deserve thanks as our outside of the city limits, but within the UGMA representative. The city is so fortunate to have you on this commission. I've learned a lot from just how you model public engagement and the vast encyclopedia of knowledge that you bring to this process. So I'm grateful to sit on this commission with you, to get to know you a little bit, and this city is fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I agree with everything that's been said, a lot of work and that kind of thing. And I also want to thank the city staff who has worked tirelessly to lead us here to this recommendation. So this decision is a recommendation of the city council, which will make the final decision after a public hearing. And so as I understand it, the City Council will consider this recommendation on April 7th. Thank you. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
We're almost there. Almost there.
Don't worry, it's only 7:36.
I move we extend to 10:15.
You would.
Is there any other business from the commissioners or staff?
We don't have anything for you.
Okay. Forecast for future meetings?
Next meeting will be somewhat of a heavy one, 2 current planning items, and then after that, we'll have an update on the on the comprehensive plan implementation work program.
Okay. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one question for staff first.
Yes, please.
With regards to the future schedule, do we have any contingency plans in place or anything if the public health departments recommend that we not hold public meetings?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
We're working to see our capabilities to hold meetings telephonically and what that means, but it all depends on what the advice from the public authorities is.
We do have
There's a lot of internal discussion about how we operate, if that's an issue. And basically right now, it's like, if you feel sick, don't show up.
Yeah.
Do we have the legal authority to operate these meetings with remote participants?
We're analyzing that currently.
Okay.
One of the issues you have is providing public access to the meetings, because you can hold them telephonically, but we always have the opportunity when we hold them here for the public to come in and see the meetings. You are limiting it to those that have access to certain technology if they can't. So we're trying to steer through that to see what might happen. Should there be a declaration of emergency from the state or the public health department about stuff like that, that could can include some guidance on postponing public meetings. So
Thank you.
we'll let you know.
I have a question. Denny, what do we do after this? Do we just, now that we did the comprehensive plan recommendation, is business as usual? I mean, what's the next defining goal?
Housing. We're going to deal with how to implement the housing policies and House Bill 2001.
Okay.
So we formed an advisory committee. We're in the process of putting a consultant on board. It will be a little while before those are coming forward to you, but what I expect in a month, the thing that we'll talk about is that entire work program and where we're going with it.
Okay. I can't wait.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Move to adjourn.
I second. Oh, dang.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
All right.